to get started in just 1 second. So before I do, what you can do if you're watching this video, if you're going to be watching it live, or you're watching the recording, just make sure you can see me, is to make yourself comfortable. So make yourself comfortable, maybe in a room where you can't be disturbed, and you want to have both hands free because we're going to be using both hands. Some water is good because EFT, emotional freedom technique, can make you thirsty when we release all that negative energy. A pen and paper is handy as well because we can write down tapping statements and just eliminate distractions. Like, you've given yourself this time to learn something, and this is a skill that you can have at the end of this training in 30-40 minutes. This is something that you can have to change how you feel when you feel anxious or you have panic attacks. So, okay, I'm going to go get, so can you, hello, Jessie, you can hear me, right? I'm assuming you can hear me, Jessie. Okay, cool. So briefly about me, my name is Veronica Valli. I've been continuously sober for almost 18 years. My sobriety date is May 2nd, 2000. I'm also formerly a therapist in the UK, and I work as an EFT practitioner and recovery coach. And I wrote a couple of books, Why You Drink and How to Stop, and I have a blog and all that kind of stuff. So I have a long history of panic attacks and anxiety. So if you're watching this and you suffer from anxiety, okay, should I wait a bit? Okay, Jesse's just telling me people are probably taking a minute to find me. So I had a long history of panic attacks and anxiety. I had my first panic attack when I was about 18. And it was triggered by recreational drug use, by hallucinogens. And that sent me into drug-induced psychosis, which I had no idea I had at the time because I couldn't tell anyone because I was too scared. And I began to have panic attacks, and I would have several a day, and they completely destroyed my life. And I couldn't tell anybody about it because I was so scared if I said the words out loud that it would be true. I was suicidal. I struggled to cope. Eventually I went to the doctors, kind of told the truth, sort of. He gave me a bunch of Valium. That helped a bit. And that's when my drinking really changed from being, you know, the sort of just binge drinker party girl to drinking to cope with how I feel. Because it was very clear to me that alcohol took away the anxiety. Now, I now know in my work and in all the people I've met that this is extremely common, that so many people have anxiety and use alcohol to cope with it. So I was certainly the kind of person who would drink before any kind of social event because it was the only way to get my anxiety down. I just didn't have any way to cope. So I just want you to know, if you're going through this, I know exactly what you're going through, and it's horrific. It's horrifying. And I really feel for you. And I also want you to know there is a way out. I haven't had a panic attack for years and years and years, probably since not my first 18 months of recovery, and the same with anxiety. So I want to teach you a skill today so that you can have some of that power back and be able to deal with anxiety the minute it happens. So if you're jumping on this call and if you have questions about your anxiety or about panic attacks, pop them in the comments and I will certainly try and answer them. So a little bit about EFT. It's going to be huge very, very soon. It's really breaking. It's still seen a little bit fringe. I'm a traditionally trained therapist. I love traditional therapy. I think it's extremely helpful. I came across EFT years ago when I was needing more confidence doing public speaking, and it was life-changing. And then I went for other issues, and then I trained in it, and now it's all I use with my clients because we can get to the issues so quickly, and change can be so dramatic. So EFT is basically the marriage of modern psychology and ancient Chinese acupressure. So the premise of EFT is the cause of all negative emotions are due to a disruption in the body's energy system. So what that means is we store our feelings and our emotions in our bodies. There's a couple of books I want to recommend to you. One is The Body Keeps the Score, and the other is Childhood Disrupted. Can't remember the authors, you'll have to Google, put them on Amazon. But both of them are written and very, very well researched, and they lay out how we, we store our negative emotions in our bodies, and how eventually those things cause physical problems, mental health problems, all that kind of stuff. Now, the reason for that is most of us are just not really very well equipped to deal with negative feelings. So what happens is something happens and we feel a certain way about it, a negative feeling about it, and we don't process it or deal with it. We push it down. And then something else happens and it continues and continues. So we have all of these negative feelings that we haven't processed, that we're scared of, that we just push down, that we just push down, that we just push down inside of us. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? And eventually those feelings go, hello, hello, remember us. We need to be processed. We need to be felt. And they scare the bejesus out of us. That's why alcohol is so effective at putting that lid down temporarily. And that stuff just builds up and builds up, and then manifests itself in all kinds of different ways. So we have to, number one, we have to deal with our feelings. And EFT is a really quick and really effective way of doing that. If there's any questions so far, please just put it in the comments and I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so what we're going to go through today is I am going to show you how to do EFT. I'm going to show you how to tap on anxiety, on panic attacks before they happen. So if you have a triggering event where you know you're scared, I'm scared of going to this event because I've had a panic attack there, we can do that. I'm going to teach you how to tap, do emergency tapping as well. So, okay, let me just look at a question from Kim. Hi, 2.5 years sober, been fine until recently, having to work 12 to 15 hour shifts, being exhausted and having low level anxiety each morning in regards to going to work. Any suggestions? Most appreciated. The first thing I'd say to you, Kim, is about balance and balancing your life, and how you can, some self-care in there. But EFT will help with the low level anxiety. Okay, so I'm going to show you where to tap first of all. I'll warn you straight away, whenever I have new clients, does look a little bit odd, but you'll get over it. So the first place we're going to tap is on the karate chop point right here. And it's just a tapping like this. Just a light tapping. You shouldn't be hurting yourself or leaving bruises or anything like that. So if you're watching this, copy what I do. So the next area that we're going to tap on is on top of the head. Hi, Sarah. So we're going to tap on top of the head like this. If you're just jumping on, we're just starting to do EFT and it looks a bit strange. So just copy me and trust me, okay? So we're going to tap on top of the head. Then we're going to tap around the eye socket. Either eye doesn't matter. So we're going to tap at the beginning of the eyebrow on the eye socket, at the end of the eyebrow, and underneath in the middle. So those three places right there. Then we're going to tap between the nose and the top lip in the middle, between the bottom lip and the chin, that little dent there. Then we're going to tap here on our chest. And the last place is under the arm. For ladies, it's where your bra strap is. For gentlemen, it's about 4 inches down. So right there. So those are the places we're going to tap. Told you it looks a bit odd, right? So really quickly, we'll just go through them again. Here, 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 here. Deep breath. Take a deep breath because that's how the negative energy is released. If you have any specific anxiety issues that you want to work on, put them in the comment section and we'll try and get to it. Kim, I'm going to try and work on your low level anxiety for you. Okay, so let's start with there. Let's start with Kim's anxiety. Kim, if you want to type, if you are able to type, is it about anything specific? Is it you just feel generally anxious? And I want to ask you, where do you feel it in your body? This is really important because it's about where we hold our energy in our bodies. So notice where you feel your anxiety. Is it your stomach is clenched, or your chest feels tight, or your head? Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Whatever it is for you is perfectly correct. So what we're going to do is put it into a statement that we're going to tap on. So the reason for this is, while we're tapping on these acupressure points, we are bringing out of our filing system in our brains, we're bringing this information to the front of our brains, so our brains know this is the issue that we're working on. And then once we've tapped on the statement, we do what's called a reminder phrase as we're going around. I'll demonstrate this for you, it will be easier. So the statement is in two parts. So this is how the statement works. The first part of the statement says what the problem is. The second part of the statement accepts that that's how it is right now. So it's not about accepting that we have this and it's not going to change. We can't change until we accept things as they are right now. We have to be real. Once we've accepted those things, then we can change. So that's what the statement does. Hey, Tori. Okay, great. Okay, work. Okay, I'm going to tap on Kim's issue first of all. Okay, so I'm just going to put this into a statement. Make sure you guys get comfortable. Where do you feel it? Okay, and it's in your chest. Okay, even though I feel anxious. And Kim, what I want you to do is we're all going to tap together. And what I want you to do is, on a scale of 0 to 10, everyone that's listening right now, put in the comment section how intense your anxiety is right now. So if 10 being the absolute most, 0 being nothing. So 0 to 10, put it in the comment section what your anxiety is right now. We'll see if we can bring that number down. Okay, even though I feel anxious, tired and overwhelmed. I always write it down because it's just easier with work. I feel this in my chest. Okay, so everybody, so yours is 0. So that means you're not having anxiety right now, Tori. Kim, if you can put your number in, that would be really helpful. Okay, everybody, copy me and repeat what I say. Even though I feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest. I deeply and completely accept myself. So the second part of that statement is I deeply and completely accept myself. Now, for some people, they just feel like, oh, no, I'm not in that place. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. What we can do is we can adjust it slightly. So adjust it to what works for you. So we could say, I'm working on accepting myself. So we could say that if that's more true for you. So say whatever feels true. That's really important. If it doesn't feel true for you, don't say it. Put it in your own words. The statement that we use can be very inelegant, and it will still work. Okay, tap along with me. Even though I feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest. I'm working on accepting myself. Even though I feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest, and I'm working on accepting myself. Even though I feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest, and I'm working on accepting myself. Anxious, 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 anxious. Deep breath. And then check that number again. 0 to 10, what level is your anxiety at? Has it shifted at all? Has it gone down? Because we can carry on tapping. So Kim, what we would do in your case is we would say, because you haven't put your number in, so I'm just going to guess. Let's say it was a 7, maybe now it's a 5. Even though I still have this anxiety about work and I feel tired and overwhelmed, I feel this in my chest and I'm working on accepting myself. Even though I still feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest and I'm working on accepting myself. Even though I still feel anxious, tired, and overwhelmed with work, I feel this in my chest and I'm working on accepting myself. Still feel anxious, 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 still feel anxious. Deep breath. Then let me know, any of you who are watching, if your anxiety shifted at all. So that's an example of how to tap on anxiety. Now, EFT works best when you are very specific. So you want to be specific as possible in your descriptions. If you can be more specific about what you're anxious about, is it a certain person at work or situation, but also more specific about what's happening in your body. You know, the description, where it is, has it moved, the anxiety, is it, you know, is it in your stomach now? Just keep checking in with your body and paying attention to that. Okay, Kim, I can see your comments now. Okay. So Kim, what I would suggest you do is you do it in the morning. Is you try and find, and the great thing about EFT is it's really quick, 5 minutes. So there is a link I put up there that's gonna, I recorded a quick video for you which shows you how, just the basics of tapping. It's really like a few minutes. And there's a cheat sheet as well that you should get with it too, that just gives you the basic kind of setup and statements too. So go ahead and download that, and just try it in the tapping. Now, we're going to talk about emergency tapping, but let's talk about it now. So just tapping is going to be good for you. So if you remember nothing else, just tap and breathe. So this is what I would do with clients who are in a very agitated state and that just can't really string a sentence together, and they're very, very anxious. This has never failed to bring that anxiety down a notch or two, so we can talk a little easier and then get more specific. So this would be emergency tapping. So it's just tapping and breathing. So if you're in a very agitated state, just tap and breathe. It doesn't really matter what you say. Great thing about EFT is it's impossible to do it wrong. Tori, do you want me to tap on something specific? You're saying my anxiety comes when you're out of your comfort zone. Can you say a little bit more? And I can put some tapping together for you. So I want to talk about panic attacks because they're just so tough. And what we can do with panic attacks is we can tap before triggering events. So if you've suffered from a panic attack, if you ever had one, what often happens with people is they become very scared. Once they've had a panic attack in a certain situation, they then become anxious that it's going to happen again and again. And what happens is we think our way into making it happen again. So that happened with me a lot. Is my world got smaller and smaller and smaller because there were so many places I was scared of going to in case I had a panic attack, and I couldn't go to any places at all where I wouldn't be able to drink. I mean, I could handle it if I could drink, but if it was like 8 a.m. in the morning where nobody was drinking, then it was much tougher. So I want to tap on, show you how to tap on events that are coming up. I think, Tori, you mentioned that you don't feel anxious right now, but you do when you're at your comfort zone, so you could apply the same principles. So, so say for instance, there's a party coming up that you feel really anxious that you're going to have a panic attack about. So you can, you know, what's your anxiety about this party? Well, maybe it's only a 4 or 5 at the moment because I'm not actually there, but you just keep thinking about it and thinking about it. So this is how we tap. Even though I have this party and I feel anxious thinking about it, and my body is tense, right here, right now, I'm safe. Even though I have this party and I feel anxious thinking about it and my body is tense, right here, right now, I'm safe. Even though I have this party and I feel anxious thinking about it and my body is tense, right here, right now, I'm safe. Anxious about this party. 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 Deep breath. And then I would encourage you to then get a little bit more specific. Is there anything in particular about this party coming up that makes you feel anxious? Well, it's when I walk through the door and I don't know anyone. I'm so scared that I'll just have a panic attack. So that's what we'll tap on. Even though I'm anxious about arriving at this party and not knowing anyone and that I'll have a panic attack, that's just how I feel right now. Even though I'm anxious about going to this party and not knowing anybody and just having a panic attack, that's just how I feel right now. Even though I'm anxious about going to this party and having a panic attack because I don't know anyone, that's just how I feel right now. Anxious about this party. 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 Deep breath. Those of you who are tapping along with me, are you noticing a slight decrease in your anxiety? I know I've done several of these trainings on Zoom and everybody showed a significant drop. Sarah, I'm going to read what you say. I often feel anxious before going to parties, pub, or the people. The thought is often worse than the event. I can get myself into a right tears, though much better since stopping drinking. Thanks, this will help. So yeah, that's what I would exactly suggest you do, is spend 5 minutes before whatever the event is that you're going to and do a quick round of tapping. Even though I feel anxious about going to the party, that's just how it is right now. What happens with anxiety and panic attacks is our whole fight or flight response is triggered. And the tapping on acupressure points releases that. So the fight and flight that just escalates and escalates and escalates because your brain is convinced there's imminent danger coming. We're reducing that and reducing that and reducing that. You can, if you do this enough times, what will happen is you can actually you can change your brain chemistry will change. There's tons of research out there around EFT if you just Google it, that supports all of this. Okay, I want to show you some emergency tapping, and I want to see if there's anyone else on here who wants something specific that we could tap on. Tori, I'm going to tap on. I'm going to just tap on what Tori put here. Your anxiety comes when you're out of your comfort zone. So we can start there. So whatever your anxiety is, let's just tap on that. Even though I feel anxious when I'm out of my comfort zone, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel anxious when I'm out of my comfort zone, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I feel anxious when I'm out of my comfort zone, I deeply and completely accept myself. Anxious. Anxious, 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 anxious. Deep breath. So what EFT can do is it can bring this down a notch. Just doing what I've taught you today will bring this down a notch. And sometimes it's enough for our rational brain to then kick in and for us to be able to make a better choice or do something that's more calming or whatever. Now, when I work one-to-one with people, I would then look to get to the root of this, because there's always a root. And if we go back to the root and we do EFT on that root, then it will eliminate the anxiety and panic attacks. And that's happened with many of the clients that I've worked with. I'm just going to look at questions. Okay, Kim. Okay, so when I first found EFT, as I said, I was a traditionally trained therapist, and I met this woman at some networking event in England, and I was getting asked to speak in front of like hundreds of people, tell my story of recovery, and I would get really nervous. It wasn't a panic attack, but I get really, really nervous and didn't want to do it. And I met this woman. She said, I can solve that with EFT. And I was like, really? But I was like, I'll give it a go. I mean, if it works, great, but you know, I'll give it a go. And it took 2 sessions and it's never come back. And that was 15 years ago. Then I went to her because I was having, I was still less than 3 years sober at that point, and that I was having an issue with sugar cravings. 3 sessions, that went away. So after that, I was like, I have to train to do this. So I use this a lot in my practice in England when I worked in treatment centers. Majority of people come into treatment centers have some kind of anxiety. Some people had crippling panic attacks, and part of being in treatment was participating in group therapy, and a lot of them people couldn't do it because they felt so anxious. Sitting in a group sober was terrifying for them. So I would use EFT to bring their anxiety down to a level that was manageable for them, to sit in the group and feel connected and safe with people, where it reduced further. But then since coming to America, I have done more EFT training and just exclusively really work using EFT, because I can get to core issues and resolve them in 2 or 3 sessions that would take 20 or 30 as a traditional therapist. I'm not knocking that, because I'm trained in it and I love it, and I think it really has its place, and I will pop in and out of therapy myself every so often. But EFT can really solve so many issues. So it does look bonkers, but you get over it really quickly because of the results. Okay. Yes, EFT. Okay, so Sarah's talking about her daughter has chronic regional pain syndrome, and she uses it to decrease her pain. It really helps her. It helps a lot with physical ailments, because again, as I said at the beginning, there's a great big body of research now that really supports that a lot of our physical problems are actually a manifestation of unresolved emotional issues. A book that I'm currently reading called Childhood Disrupted, which is all about adverse childhood experiences and trauma. Really, it's very well researched, and it really lays out. It says, I think the tagline is how our biography becomes our biology. So techniques like this resolve both of those issues, the physical issue and the emotional issue. So it does both things at the same time. Tori, when I don't know what to expect, there's something about what could happen. And okay, too much, there's never such thing as too much. Okay. Yeah, Tori, there's a lot there, and we're almost running out of time, but I want to, all of that, I worked with someone recently who had a fear of flying, and it all went back to, so she had a panic attack on a plane, and she had to get off the plane. It caused a whole kind of hoo-ha because her suitcase was on there, but she was having a panic attack. They medically took her off. And it all went back to when she was about 7. She would play outside with her older brothers and friends, and they would all play, there was a game, childhood game, I can't remember the name of it, but it all ended up with people jumping on top of each other. And that happened to her, and she had all these kids on top of her, and she couldn't breathe, and she felt trapped. So we did this work, and that's where the thread went. So we did EFT very specifically on that incident, and it was completely resolved. So I have a whole training that I did on sugar cravings. It's not for sale at the moment, but I will have it for sale soon. So I want to show you some emergency tapping that you can do when nobody's around, and you can do it in secret. Sorry, when people are around, and you can do it and it's in secret. So here's a couple of places you can do in emergency. Say like you're in a situation you don't really want to do that because people will. My EFT practitioner in England always used to do it in public. She never used to care, but most people, I don't. I would feel a bit silly. But this is what you can do. So you can tap here, just like this with your fingers. And I'm doing it under the desk. So for the work situation, you can always just keep doing that. And if you're at a desk, and take a deep breath. The breath is really important because it's how you release the negative energy. So another place to tap on your hand is, ooh, where's my camera? Sorry, I'm just trying to work out, is the side of the finger. So it's like this, on the side of the nail bed, on the inside. I hope you can see this properly because it's sort of, okay, is that better? I need a manicure. So again, that's something I can do under my desk. Either hand, doesn't matter. I do both hands. So I've done that in situations where I felt a bit nervous or whatever. And this will relieve any intense feeling, anger, frustration, fear, cravings. It will be helpful for, you can use this exact technique. So an example would be, even though I'm craving alcohol right now, right here, that's just how I feel, for instance. Or even though I'm really craving chocolate and I just want to binge, that's just how I feel right now. So you can tap on anything that has an intense emotion, is something you feel in your body. It's a negative emotion, and the tapping will release it. So another place you can tap in an emergency is where you, on your wrist, where your watch strap is. So again, that's something you can do under the table. And, you know, to be honest with you, I have gone and done it in the ladies' room. And I've done just the tapping and breathing, tapping and breathing. Oh, why does this work? I know, Tori, it's fascinating. I'm honestly not great at explaining the sciencey bit because I'm not a sciencey person. I'm a therapist. However, it's to do with our central nervous system, and our body is energy. And it's to do with the fact that when we feel emotions, we absorb them in our body. If we don't process them, if you know me at all from my Facebook group, you know I'm huge on process. If we don't process them, they get trapped in our bodies. And you can see this. You just need to look around. All the people you know, you can see, I have a theory. There's two kinds of people in life. Everyone has shit, everyone. And there's people who are working on their shit, or people who are not working on their shit. And you can see the people who are not working on their shit. And you can see it from how they behave. And you can see it from the physical, a lot of it from the physical, you know, like how their bodies are. EFT is very successful with fibromyalgia. Lots of different kind of, you know, lots of different kind of stuff like that. But it's to do with, our body is an energy system. Negative emotions trap that energy and we continue to absorb it. It's almost, and we just keep putting it, I always call it like a storage container. We put that negative feeling of fear about whatever happened, that negative frustration, the disappointment, because we don't know how to process our feelings very well. That's why we have the alcohol problem that we do. It's not role modeled in our culture, and we're usually not taught it very well by our parents. We're not taught emotional intelligence. So we use outside things to manage how we feel. So the I'm sorry, I'm not explaining this very well. The acupressure gets that energy moving again. But the reason we say the statement is, we could just tap and get the energy moving, is going to help you feel better. But why we say the statement and we get really, really, really specific is we want our brain, that little filing system in our brain, to go, oh, right, oh, cut that memory and bring it right here. Because, you know, so for example, you know, when someone starts telling the story of something that happened to them and they get very animated. Now, if it's a distressing and negative story and they get very animated and emotional, that past event is living in their present, living in their body. They're feeling the same sensations. So the reason they're feeling that is because it's active in their emotional energy system, and it's active in their brains. Now, what happens with EFT is when we resolve an issue from the past or present that causes you anxiety, it then becomes very hard to remember. So that happens a lot with clients. We can work on something that's very distressing. I have a client I worked on last week who has chronic asthma, and her whole family tells a story about when she nearly died when she was 5, and she can remember it. And we did a whole session on just this one incident. And now when I ask her about that incident, it's very hard for her to recall. It's very fuzzy memory, and she's not really interested in talking about it because it's just not really relevant anymore. And that's what happens because it's no longer held in our bodies. And I hope that was an okay explanation. But Google it. There's tons of stuff on there. Yes. Okay, let's just do one round before we end. Thank you for joining me, everyone who stayed through. So even though I have this anxiety and I feel it in my body, I'm working on getting better. Even though I have this anxiety and I feel it in my body, I'm working on getting better. Even though I have this anxiety and I feel it in my body, I'm working on getting better. Have this anxiety. 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 Deep breath. So I hope everybody who watched this video noticed a little shift, noticed their anxiety come down. I can almost guarantee it. If you really, really want to eliminate it, you do need to get specific with that. Please go ahead and download the free video and cheat sheet just to show you kind of where to do that. And I just want to quickly tell you about my course that's starting May 21st, and enrollment opens tomorrow, which is, if you're watching this recording, April 23rd. And I do have a early bird special on that for anybody who is a member of my Facebook group Soberful. You can get $50 off if you enroll in the next 48 hours. And there's a ton of bonuses. Okay, that's what I want to tell you about. If you enroll in the next 48 hours when it opens tomorrow morning, there's 6 training videos on EFT included. And this is only for the early birds. So there's EFT for sugar cravings, alcohol cravings, stress, anxiety, and panic attacks. Plus, I recently did 2 one-hour trainings, which go very, very, very in depth on how to use the easy way to beat alcohol triggers and the easy way to beat sugar cravings using EFT. And those go very, very specific in how to kind of get to the root of them. So those are also included in the package. So if you want to find out more about that, you need to check out my Soberful Facebook group. But I want to thank Laura and Jossie, I hope I'm saying that correctly, for hosting me. It's been great. I love Club Soda. I rave about it.